welcome to the next episode of Scribble Reviews, where I normally review anything from TV shows, video games, films I've seen, stuff that's going on and whatnot. And I've seen another film, guys, and this week in particular, I went to go see The Greatest Showman, which is one that I've actually been wanting to see for quite a while actually, or a few months rather, whatever one you prefer. Mainly from the trailers and whatnot. I've seen it the trailer for a few times in the cinema, getting hyped for it, and I was just ready for like a good, feel-good film. I felt like after a while I'd been seeing so many terrible films, and I wanted to see something good, something I would enjoy. Didn't necessarily need to be absolutely stellar, amazing, I just needed to enjoy it. Once again, because I felt like the end of the year, I was seeing quite a lot of rubbish films out there and whatnot, so what did I think here of The Greatest Showman? Well, I would say that straight away, I went out and I bought the soundtrack as soon as I got home and got access to my iTunes account. Sadly, for some reason, I'm not able to sync my iPod to my iTunes, but that's another issue that I'm having with iTunes at the moment, because it seems to be that maybe the latest Windows update doesn't really work well with it. But talking about the film, the music was absolutely amazing, as to be expected, because it's kind of like, it's hard to explain, because I feel like it's meant to be shown in like the style of a musical. Obviously because there are many musical numbers, although I was surprised to find out that there's only 11 tracks. I suppose because technically most of them are reprises, at different aspects and whatnot. I felt like there was more songs, or maybe it might have just been the way that some songs were split up and whatnot, and some of them obviously were reprises and everything. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised to see that there was only 11 songs on this soundtrack, which I guess makes more sense for like a film, and not like, because a musical will have maybe like 20 odd songs depending on how long the film has got. Like, have you seen the soundtrack for Les Mis? There are so many songs in that. But I certainly did enjoy it, guys. And again, I will be discussing some spoilers. If you've never seen any of my film reviews, I usually talk about spoilers in terms of it. So if you've not seen the film, I would advise you see it first before you watch this video. I definitely enjoyed this film. Like, there wasn't like, I feel like there wasn't a point where I was like, okay, I'm not enjoying myself anymore. I felt like I enjoyed the flow of it. For some reason, the film felt very short, but I might have been viewing it in the sense that I felt I was watching a musical. And normally I'm used to musicals being quite long. Again, look at Les Mis, Phantom of the Opera, blah blah blah. They're quite long musicals, so it felt quite short. And I felt like maybe there's meant to be more in this film, mainly because of the concept of the conflict or whatever that is brought up in the film. So the main plot, if you've not read the synopsis or anything like that, is we've got Hugh Jackman, who's kind of like it's like a rags to riches story. He's really poor. He really likes this girl who's like super rich, whatever. Her father is like, oh, you'll never speak to my daughter, and blah blah blah. So he aspires to earn fortune or whatever, to give her a life that she'll be comfortable in, to make her happy and everything, to prove that he's better than what people will think of him. So he goes off and he tries his best to earn money. He wins her heart. They have kids and everything. He's still dirt poor. He's trying to think of some way that they can, like, you know, get money super quick, because he's not doing well. He's losing his jobs and whatnot. And he decides, basically, when he starts off, he's like, I'm going to buy this museum or whatever of wonders and everything, but eventually he gets the idea to turn it into, well, he calls it like a museum of oddities and whatnot. Eventually gets labeled a circus by like a horrible journalist who hates his thing, but he's like, I'm going to wear that with pride. So he basically goes about the town and he looks for all the oddities of the town. So he gets the bearded lady, he gets like a really tiny man to be Napoleon and whatnot, he gets a giant, he gets a dog boy and whatnot, conjoined twins and acrobats and trapeze artists, and they start up this circus and everything. And it's like turning profit, is doing really well for him, but it's that typical story of like kind of greed overwhelming someone. And it's like, some people would compare that the greed is the actual conflict of the film, but I feel like what the film was trying to push more was the conflict of, there's a bunch of prejudiced people who hate these freaks and want them to leave. And you know, and that's the conflict, because they're getting angrier and angrier by every day, and something's going to happen. It's building up to something, and when it does build up to something, and you're like, oh no, this is the bad moment, but then it gets resolved super quickly, and I feel like, was that really the conflict you were trying to push? Because the main conflict, obviously, seems to be that, you know, some people are hating the acts. They want them to leave. They want them to get out of the town or whatever. They attack them in the street. They shower abuse at them and everything like that. And eventually, like, again, if you've not seen the film, heavy spoilers for what's happening in the film, eventually, they get their way. They manage to burn down the museum and basically ruin their livelihoods and everything. And it feels like, oh, they've won. The people with conflict have won. You can't perform your show anymore. This is it, they've won. But then instantly it gets fixed, and they're like, hey, we don't need a building. It's fine. I'll pitch a tent somewhere, and we'll do the show in the tent. And it's like, okay, what's stopping them from burning down your tent then? Like, they're not going to magically go away just because you suddenly don't have a physical building now. You just have a tent. Surely a tent is easier to burn down than the building. I felt like the film kind of forgot that because it's like quickly swept up. It's like, it's fine, we have a tent, we're performing again, we're making the money and everything's fine. And like, there's this ending song and it's like, wait, but they're surely they're just going to come over and burn your tent down and everything, but no, they're just like, no, end of the film, it's fine, conflict's resolved, everyone's happy, it's great, and all that stuff. And it's like, wait, shouldn't there be more? So yeah, I feel like this film should have been a bit longer. Maybe should have addressed it, like, maybe there was a way that they won over the people that were prejudiced against them. Maybe they got more security or whatnot, or they got more help from the local community to help them with their show. That felt lacking. I felt like the main conflict they wanted to push was the idea of Hugh Jackman's character getting consumed by his want for more and his want to be recognised as equal to the higher-ups of society and everything, and his aspirations and everything. So that's why he kept pushing higher and higher. He needed more. He needed to be praised more and everything, and he lost sight of what got him to that position in the first place, which was this first endeavour of his. And I think that was what the film wanted, but I think it got kind of like swept up in the conflict of there's some really angry guys that really want to hurt these people who are different from others. So I felt like it was kind of like a mixed bag of what the conflict actually was. Other than that, the film looked stunning. Like, the costumes and all that were amazing. The sets were lovely to look at. The songs, again, were gorgeous. The acting, I felt, was also pretty good. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Hugh Jackman. And I know a lot of people gave Hugh Jackman all this shtick for when he was in the Les Mis film, and some people were like, he clearly can't sing. I felt like he, maybe not proved them wrong, but I felt like he's obviously bettered himself since that film. His singing was a lot better, I feel like. I personally loved Les Mis as a film. I know a lot of people hated to say Russell Crowe singing or Hugh Jackman singing. I personally loved it. I liked Hugh Jackman singing, and I like him singing in this. Zac Efron is also in this film, which I kept thinking to myself, wow, he's come such a long way from High School Musical. I remember being back when, like, literally when I was starting high school, and High School Musical coming out, and, like, seeing him and his floppy hair and all that stuff, and I'm just staring at him now in this film, like, wow, you've come such a long, long way. And I think his singing has gotten better. As far as I'm aware, I don't know whether any of it was auto-tuned. I've not looked into it, so I'm not quite sure if it was auto-tuned. Although I did remember way back when people were like, oh, High School Musical, Zac Efron's auto-tuned. It's not him that's on the actual soundtrack singing. I believe it is him singing in this film. I've not checked any articles or whatever to see whether it was auto-tuned or not, but it felt like it wasn't. I felt like it was coming from him. And again, the singing was good. Normally I don't like little kids singing. There's a song where the majority of it is sang by, like, the younger kids or whatever, and normally I don't like them singing. Like, normally I can't stand, like, children singing. I'm just like, oh my god, cringe. But they were actually really good, and I was actually crying at that point in the song. Like, there was points where I was, like, gushing with, like, little tears in my eyes, and I was like, oh, the film is making me cry. Why are you doing this? But, yeah, if music can do that to me, usually the music is quite good. I don't really cry a lot at, music in particular. I know I cry a lot at films and TV shows and some video games, but to get me to cry at some, like, a form of media takes a lot of doing. Takes a lot of doing. Usually I think I'm like a stone-hearted person, but literally I just, like, melt at the sight of something. I'm just like, oh, the song was so beautiful and made me cry. But definitely enjoyed it. Overall, acting was pretty good. I enjoyed it. A lot of people were I think they were criticising, obviously, the lack of a conflict or the confusion over the conflict, and some people just didn't like Hugh Jackman's character, which I can understand from an outsider point of view. You would be like, he's just a total dick or whatever. He's just caring about money. He doesn't care about anyone. He doesn't care about his wife or his kids or anybody. He's just after money. And I feel like by the end of the film they resolved that and they fixed it, and, you know, it wasn't all about the money in the end. It was kind of like a little bit of, like, you know, he had to help his ego and whatnot. You know, he's been treated like dirt all his life. He wanted to be praised by people. He wanted to be recognised and everything like that. And I can accept that. I can understand his reasoning for doing that. I also felt really bad for all of the circus people and whatnot, because it didn't delve too much into their past. Like, you only got to see really some of them in their, like, actual home background. Like, you saw the bearded lady where she worked in the wash house, but she was always, like, hidden away behind a towel or whatnot. Nobody really wanted to look at her. Like, you know, they made fun of her and everything like that. Or, like, the small man who obviously people kept treating like he was a kid, but he was clearly, like, in his 20s or something like that by the way he talked and everything and the way he carried himself. You know, making fun of him. And who was the other one? The trapeze artists, obviously, people were against them and whatnot. So I felt like it gave a good way of, like, characterizing them. there's also like random characters and whatnot, which I don't think ever got names, and they never really got introduced. They were always just in the background, and I kept thinking, I wonder what your story was, because one of them was this really, really pale woman, and I can't help but think, is she just naturally that pale? Is she maybe albino, or is this makeup or something? Because there was quite a couple of like background characters, because they can't just have like just one or two characters. They need to make up a circus, so there's going to be quite a lot of background character who obviously don't have names or don't really have anything to like highlight what it is that's the oddity about them. But I wanted to know a bit more about some of the other ones. There's obviously the other ones like the giant or whatever. There's like the 1,000-pound man and all that stuff. I kind of wanted a little bit more info on some of those guys, but obviously the film wasn't going to focus too much on that aspect of it. It was more like showing them as equals on the same stage and whatnot. So I feel like I appreciated it for that. Closing out, probably like I feel like I really enjoyed this film. It was definitely a good start to my year. This is the first film I've technically seen in 2018. I saw the other week there when we were talking about Jumanji, I technically saw that in 2017, technically, so it's not like a review of 2018. This is technically my first film of 2018, and I certainly hope that since it started off very good, maybe this is promising for the rest of the year. But bear in mind that we've got a lot of horrible horror film remakes coming, a lot of horrible horror sequels coming. That it's going to maybe swiftly plummet with little dips of greatness, because obviously Coco is still to come out, Black Panther is still to come out. I'm looking forward to those. But this was definitely a good start to the year, guys. Let me know down below, what did you think of The Greatest Showman? Personally, I loved it. I enjoyed it. I would have liked it to have been a bit longer. Maybe it would have been great to have a bit more idea of what the actual conflict was going for in the end, but I certainly did enjoy it, guys. Let me know what you thought down below. I'd love to hear your opinions about these different films and whatnot, and I'll see all you guys next time.